None of us can speak about English literature without bringing to mind great novels and literary works like The Animal Farm, Burmese Days, and Coming Up for Air. And if these works spread rapidly, and a wide range of readers wanted to read it, the great work 1984 remains one of the greatest works of George Orwell, the pen name of Eric Arthur Blair, the most famous English writer, journalist and critic. Also, the 1984 novel did not achieve this distinction over a century ago because of the fame of the writer only, but the work also achieved a wide spread because of its deep awareness of the components of societies, and the foundations on which the modern state is built, especially those societies that implemented the socialist system. The influence of Orwell's novel has continued in various aspects of social life until now because of the awareness that this novel brought to the modern literary and intellectual culture. So what are the main events of this novel? (1984) by George Orwell. The novel 1984 draws the features of a world of a distinct kind, as its geographical and political composition is divided into three main countries. The first country is Oceania, which is meant by the Americas, Australia and the British Isles. And the second country is Eurasia, and its lands are Russia, and the rest of Europe. The third country is Eastasia, and this part of the world consists of China, Japan, Korea and northern India. As for the rest of the world, it consists of warring countries that live in endless struggles and conflicts. In the midst of this large number of conflicts and wars, the Big Brother stands, who is the leader of the ruling party in Oceania, and in the novel's perspective he represents the absolute power that has marked the modern world, and some socialist experiences as a group of totalitarian states. Everything according to the Big Brother must be solved with a different logic, a perfect arrangement with a lot of wisdom, and also a lot of authoritarianism. Perhaps what motivates the Big Brother is what every dictatorial and totalitarian ruler sees when he considers everything that threatens the regime from near or far must be dealt with firmly and severely, and that the regime's survival lies in eliminating its opponents from the revolutionaries and dissidents. The events of the novel take place in the state of Oceania, specifically in Airstrip 1, which was formerly called Great Britain, in which an atmosphere of war, governmental control and manipulation of facts and the masses prevails. Pictures and posters of the head of the ruling party that says Big Brother is watching you are spread in this district, while monitors and microphones monitor every detail of the people's private and public life. Bit to remember, the older brother is a symbol of dictatorship and totalitarianism in the governance that some countries have known. The protagonist is Winston Smith, who was working in the documents department of the Ministry of Truth, which is a huge pyramidal building of glossy white concrete, written on one of its walls with clear and visible letters. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. In Oceania, there are four main ministries. The Ministry of Truth, which is concerned with news, education and entertainment affairs. The Ministry of Peace, which is concerned with war and defense affairs. The Ministry of Love, which is responsible for maintaining order and enforcing the law. The Ministry of Plenty, which is responsible for economic affairs. In fact, the function of the Ministry of Truth was to falsify the facts and change the parameters of the truth in accordance with the interests of the ruling party, which are constantly changing. Winston complained about everything the ruling party was doing, and the way the country was being run. He opened a drawer in his office, took a notebook, and began writing down his thoughts, although this process was very risky to the point of death if he was discovered, especially that the ruling party was punishing people for a charge it calls the crime of thought. So what did he write? Winston wrote in his notebook that he hates the Big Brother. Bit to remember, for Winston, the Ministry of Truth was a system for falsifying reality and manipulating people's feelings. Winston Smith was a junior officer in the dictatorship of Oceania. Unfortunately, he lives in a country that does not believe in the opinion and the other opinion, or believes in freedom of thought. Sometimes man may be a victim of geopolitics, as Oceania was in a war with its neighboring countries. His work in the Ministry of Truth was psychologically tiring, as he was charged with drafting everything written in newspapers in order to be consistent with the decisions of the ruling party. This reality made everything under control for him or for others, including private things. As in everywhere there are posters with the state motto, "Big Brother is watching you." Winston Smith's world seems terrible by any measure, and perhaps one of the most important ideas that the novel highlights is the idea of doublethink. What does this idea mean? Doublethinking is a dangerous process through which a person believes in two ideas or beliefs that are marked by contradictions and repulsion, and they cannot be combined in any case, and at the same time he believes in both of them as the absolute truth. For example, the ruling party was spreading the idea that war is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. With his interesting writings, and highly literary words, and his wild imagination, George Orwell was able to present us with a terrible world which might be the logical result of what he would call the brainwashing of the state of Oceania under the leadership of the Big Brother, which is a dangerous process that Smith illustrates to us. As people learn this kind of thinking automatically and systematically, they also compete in order to conform with the prevailing beliefs, or to gain favor within the ruling party. Bit to remember: doublethink is the belief in two contradictory ideas or beliefs and to believe that both of them represent the absolute truth. Smith's relationship with Julia was a fatal mistake, as she works with him in the Ministry of Truth, and what is known here is that love is forbidden in the state of Oceania. Winston was the victim of his love for Julia, despite knowing in advance the danger of what he is doing, as she also hated the ruling party. Also, Winston began to get close to a person named O'Brien, who was believed to be an agent of the Brotherhood, which is an organization that seeks to eliminate the ruling party, and after long discussions between them, it was found that O'Brien belongs to the police thought, and that he was claiming to be one of the opponents so that he could overthrow thought criminals, and therefore, both Smith and Julia were arrested and taken to the Ministry of Love for investigation, where they will see various types of torture and abuse. It's Room 101. According to Winston, it means staying for long days, days of psychological torture, and waiting, until it is time for torture and investigation. In all this psychological time that the novel expresses in its most accurate detail, Winston Smith breaks down and begs them to subject Julia to this torture instead of him. The torture room number 101 was a terrible room during which Winston lived his worst days ever. He sacrificed his love in order to reduce the torture. Even worse, he sacrificed his girlfriend and handed her over to torture in exchange for getting out of the cycle of torture. The novel 1984 tells the details of Winston's life after his release from the Ministry of Love. Everything changed. Winston was no longer the rebellious person who hated the Big Brother. Rather, he became one of his big supporters, as he sat in a cafe one day enjoying the victory celebrations all over the streets while staring at the picture of the Big Brother. Perhaps he understands the meaning of the smile that the Big Brother hides under his black mustache. He concluded with a sentence that sums up the entire scene: "I have become in love with the Big Brother." Bit to remember: Smith falls victim to a thought crime, and changes his principles and opinions after the torture he was subjected to in Room 101.